I grew up at a ballet school that was technically brilliant, but emotionally brutal. It's been 18 years since I danced there, but the drama has continued that whole time, and now it's reached its boiling point, because after nearly 50 years of being in operation, the school is essentially done. I'm not going to name the studio, because my goal here is not to ruin lives or to get vengeance, but rather this is from a place of sadness, and I want to tell this as a cautionary tale for what can happen when you let a toxic culture go on for so long. I'll be clear about what's a fact and what's just my opinion or speculation. This school was not affiliated with any professional company. It was a local independent school with the goal of producing professional dancers. That was their mission. That was what they cared about. You were expected to train like you wanted to be a professional dancer, whether you did or not. So let's start with the contradiction that frames everything. And I'm going to read you a little bit of what's on their website about their training philosophy. They state that their training instills discipline, teamwork, perseverance, respect, self-confidence, and dedication to excellence. A lot of that's very accurate, so I'm going to go through each of those one by one. So discipline, 100%. We were all extremely disciplined. There was no way you could survive in that studio without being extremely disciplined. Teamwork, yeah, we learned how to work as a team. We actually had very good training on how you would be in the corps de ballet, which if you're not familiar with ballet, it's the large group of dancers. Like if you think of Swan Lake, like all the swans. So you really have to learn how to work with other people, follow them, stay in lines. There definitely was not a big emphasis on like, you being the star, you being the focus. We had very good training on how to work in a team. Perseverance, absolutely. If you wanted to get far at the studio, you had to persevere. You had to show up for class every day, or pretty much every day once you got to the highest levels, every week. You had to keep going. Respect, yes, too much so. The artistic director wanted way too much respect. And I'll get into more about what that means later. Self-confidence, absolutely not. They completely failed in this aspect. I'm 35 and I am just now starting to become confident in my dancing. I left that studio with my confidence completely shattered. I thought I hated dance. I eventually went to another studio and figured out like, okay, I don't hate dance. It was just this environment that I was in. And I know that is true for a lot of the friends I had that I danced with. And most people I've talked to have also said that, yeah, no, self-confidence was not something they left with. And lastly, dedication to excellence. Yes, absolutely. That is what they wanted. They wanted to be top-notch in everything. The technical training was truly excellent. There are very few things that I would change about that. So that they did succeed at. So what was it like to train there? Well, first I'll give you my story and my background. I started training there January of 2000. I had a very little bit of ballet experience before that. I took like a tap jazz ballet combo that lots of kids take through my school. But then I wanted to do ballet more seriously after I went to see a Nutcracker performance. So my mom's friend recommended this studio because they were very good technically, like you were gonna get a solid ballet foundation there. So I went, I loved it. I'm very naturally uncoordinated, so I was a mess. But I have very archy feet, which in ballet is very desirable. So that's honestly probably what kept me going, is because even though I was a mess up top, my feet were always getting compliments from the teachers. And I was like, oh, okay. So even though I was struggling to get the coordination down, I had this, like special talent that kept me going. So in the lower levels, I'd say things were pretty positive. The teacher who taught the very lowest level, she was great, super great with kids. Then I started progressing through the levels, and pretty much the higher you got in the levels, the worse it got. So once you'd completed a year or two of training there, or if you came from another studio and got placed into a higher level, you were eligible to join the performing company. And of course, if you're taking ballet, performing is what it's all about. So, of course, as soon as I could, I joined the performing company. I was not able to my first year because I was too tall for the one part that level ones were allowed to have. So I had to wait another year. But then once I was eligible to join, I absolutely did. And we had to sign contracts, and these had attendance requirements, a lot of volunteer requirements. Every family was required to submit a certain number of volunteer hours at the studio. That could be sewing costumes, it could be, selling things at the little boutique, at the shows, probably like scanning tickets and stuff too. I'm not really sure, but I know costumes was a big one because that was a lot of time and it was all volunteer done. It also had financial commitments, of course, and there was zero flexibility. We had to submit what were called conflicting dates at the beginning of each show cycle. So we did 3 shows a year, a Nutcracker, or before that, a different holiday performance in December, a spring performance, and then one in June at the end of the school year. At the beginning of each, basically like 3-month cycle of those, you had to submit up to 2 conflicting dates, and those were weekend dates where we'd have rehearsals that you weren't going to be there. And if you did not submit your conflicting dates, you could not miss any rehearsals. We also had a master calendar of dates that you absolutely could not miss, like mandatory, no flexibility whatsoever. Like, you better be there unless you were dying. And if you're dying, well, you're not going to be in the show anyway. So either way, it didn't matter. So the artistic director, I'm going to call her Mirta. That's a ballet character if you're not familiar. She's the queen of the willies in Giselle, but I feel like that's a good name for her. So I'm going to tell you a lot about Mirta because she was at the heart of the culture and she controlled everything, and I'm definitely going to get into the control because that's a big part of it. So first I want to share with you something that she said to parents. So I'm going to read this so I can get it right. She said she saw her job as showing young dancers how cruel and heartbreaking the ballet world can be, so she could crush their dreams before they ever truly stepped into that world. So that tells you a lot of what you need to know about the culture of this studio. It was very much, break them while they're young. But then there was never any education on how to cope with that, how to build ourselves back up. So it was just constant crushing and never really learning how to heal from that. Till now. I'm 35. Mirta had control over everything. She had control over the level you were in. I'm pretty sure she did all the casting. I think there was like technically a committee that looked at casting, but I think everyone I danced with would agree, yeah, Mirta was the one who did the casting. Even the youngest kids were treated like tiny professionals. Mirta would often say that she wanted audience members to watch these little kids on stage, and instead of going, oh, they're so cute, like you would expect, she wanted them to go, wow, they're so good. And that sounds nice, but when you really think about it, what does that mean? It means that those kids aren't being kids. Kids are supposed to be little and cute on stage. It's so fun. Every dance performance I'm in now, whenever the little kids come on and just run around, the audience loves that. So looking back, that's really sad that the kids didn't get a chance to just, be cute kids on stage. They needed to be perfect. They needed to be little professionals. There was also a lot of control on a lot of aspects of our lives. Thankfully, she didn't try to control my eating because I have ARFID. I eat very few things. So of course, I wanted to hide that from her as much as possible. She somehow found out about it because there was one time where she kind of talked to me about it, and I was thinking, how the heck does she know about that? But yeah, luckily she wasn't too involved in our diet. At least mine. There were probably other people whose diet she was involved in, but I don't know that for sure. One thing that's pretty common in the ballet world is body shaming. I wouldn't say that I experienced any overtly, but there were things our teacher would say things like, a sore butt is a small butt, and a small butt is a happy butt. So of course, when you hear something like that, you're thinking, okay, is my butt too big? So I, for many, many years, thought that my butt was too big. Not necessarily because of that phrase. There were other reasons why I thought that too. But when you're constantly fed things like that, it can subconsciously start to have those thoughts. And when you're a teenage girl, you're already super body conscious. And then you're in a leotard and tights, looking at yourself in front of a mirror every day and having someone correct how you're holding your body. Yeah, there's going to be body insecurities. So having any kind of phrase like that told to you is going to do damage. But I do know that there were others at the studio who were directly body shamed, weight shamed, shamed for the shape of their body, but other things you were not allowed to go dance at another studio. Maybe if you got explicit permission from her, you could, but otherwise, no. She did not like anyone else teaching us. She wanted us to follow her technique, only do things her way, like no outside influence whatsoever, except for the teachers at her school that she had approved. I was on my high school dance team, and I know that some other people I danced with were as well. And my high school dance team, like, it was pretty much all during school hours, except the very few performances we had per school year. So it really didn't interfere with my ballet whatsoever. And I heard that she actually forbid people from doing that a couple of years after I left. I don't know that for a fact, but that is what I heard. Really, the only way that we were allowed to go train somewhere else was for summer intensives. So there was a ballet camp that they had there at the studio, so I did that like through all the levels that they had. They had up through level 5, I believe, in ballet camp. And then once you were level 6 and up, you were expected to go to a ballet summer intensive, which are held by like professional company schools or just other schools around the country. So you typically have to audition for those. And before we would audition for any, we had to go tell her where we planned to audition and get permission. So one year I was, looking at all the options, and I thought, oh, I'd really love to go to San Francisco Ballet. Like, I don't know if I'll get in, but I love San Francisco. Getting to go there for the summer would be great. Well, I told her that, and she said, I never let anyone go to San Francisco. She didn't like their training style, so she killed that dream. I was not able to even audition there. And looking back now, it's kind of funny because a few years after I left, there were quite a few students who ended up going to San Francisco Ballet School, like not for the summer, but like permanently training there, and then joined the company. So like, oh, okay. She also did not like Balanchine school, so like SAB would have been out too. Although weirdly, she let me audition for PNB. I did not get in there, but yeah, so I don't know. So instead of San Francisco, I ended up auditioning for Boston Ballet. She had this idea about Boston. So she said they offer a lot of classes, which is great, but she didn't like because of that, there were so many different teachers that would be working with us. She preferred, having one teacher who we would stay focused with, which actually we did have. Every level had like a main teacher. But anyway, she had all these ideas about it that like weren't exactly accurate, but thankfully, she was still okay. Like, that was still on her approved list. So I and a friend went there, and when we came back, we had improved quite a bit. So after that, her opinion of Boston Ballet Summer Intensive had changed, and that became quite a popular one for people from our studio to go to after that. She had all these opinions about everything, and a lot of them I now know were not exactly right. So over the past few years, I've been questioning a lot of what I learned from her, because there were so many things I believed for many years that I now know aren't true, including what it's like to be in a professional environment. She made it sound like being a professional was just terrible, but also that we should want to do it. It's kind of like, what? But she told us that like, once you get into a company, directors aren't going to correct you anymore. And I've heard that's not true. I've never been in a professional company, so I don't know, because she made it sound so terrible, so I never wanted to join a professional company. And I do appreciate that she wanted to prepare us for the professional world. One thing she would have us do is learn from videotapes instead of having us get taught the choreography all the time. I mean, this wasn't like every time, but especially as we got older, that was something she would have us do, because that's a necessary skill for professional dancers, especially if you're understudying a role, is you might get handed a tape and be like, okay, well, go learn it and you're on stage tonight. So we all hated doing that, or at least I did. But that was an example of a skill that was good to learn, that perhaps not every studio teaches their students as they're growing up before they get into the professional world. We were constantly reminded just how nearly impossible it was to become a professional dancer, yet at the same time we were all expected to have that as our goal. And that was the only thing the studio cared about. They didn't really care about you as a person. They cared about whether you could get a professional contract and then become another poster they could put on their wall and a name they could list on the website. So because of Mirta's controlling nature, controlling everything, there was a significant power imbalance. And in that kind of environment, confidence doesn't grow, but fear and compliance sure do. But overall, her dream-crushing mindset was at the heart of the culture. There was no celebration of high school seniors when they were graduating. Unless you were leaving the studio to go become a professional dancer, you were basically dead to them if you left for any other reason. Going off to college to do a dance program, like, that was acceptable. That was still okay. But if you were leaving just to go to regular college, like, whatever, they're like, okay, well, you don't matter to us anymore because you're not getting us a professional contract. I heard some advice from an adult dancer while I was there, and he said that instead of trying to become a professional dancer, if you really love dance and want to be able to keep doing it, what you should instead do is get a career that will allow you to fund your love of dance. I believe he was like a lawyer or maybe a real estate agent or something, because he had a business card and it had like him dancing with a top hat on it. It's really funny. But yeah, that's the path I ended up taking, was get a career that would let me afford to be able to dance. And unfortunately, in my mid-20s, I did have hip surgery, so that took me away from ballet for quite a few years. But I'm now back dancing at a studio with a much better culture and so much happier there. So you may wonder, well, if the culture was so terrible, then why did you stay? Why did anyone stay? Well, staying actually was not irrational, believe it or not. Remember, this was mid-2000s, before social media had really taken off, so we didn't really have a glimpse into what other studios looked like at the time. So we were told this was the only way to succeed, and we believed it because we didn't have any examples of anything else. And we had some very famous alumni, including one who just recently retired from dancing. So we were, shown their posters on the wall every day and been like, look, they danced here, that could be you too if you work hard. And probably the biggest reason that most of us stayed is that we had close friends there. We spent so much time at this studio. I mean, like literally every day after school, and then most of the weekend too. So we all had very close friendships there. I'm still close with my friend group that I grew up at the studio with. I went to stay with one of them last year. Another one is coming to stay with me this year. And then another one is also a mom. So we're able to bond on that. The studio space was also pretty nice. We had a really, really big main dance studio. It had super high ceilings too, so much space. The upstairs studio was okay. Like that was kind of like a standard size studio. And then later we did get a third one added, which we called the closet, mainly because I think it actually was a storage closet before it became a studio. And even when it was a studio, the only window in there was on the door, which just looked out into the hallway. Like it looked across to the stairs that went up to the other studios. So yeah, no natural light in there whatsoever. And then there were still costumes hanging all along the ceiling, because this one had the high ceilings too. So the costumes were way up there, but still, like, you're literally in a closet. Hated dancing in that room so much. So thankfully we didn't have too many classes in there. Usually it was Pilates that we'd have in there more than anything else. The classes also had live music, so pianists for every single class. I had maybe like 5, if even that, classes ever there, and the like hundreds and hundreds that I took where we used CDs. It was a pretty rare thing. So the live music, we were definitely spoiled with that. We also had absolutely gorgeous costumes. We had volunteers that basically gave like all of their free time making these costumes for us. They were just amazing. Truly professional quality. They were truly unique and just spectacular. So there were plenty of reasons to stay. It wasn't exactly black and white, but I danced there from January of 2000 to December 2007, which was midway through my senior year of high school, and I will tell you why I eventually left. So my senior year of high school, I took a little bit of a step back from ballet because I knew I wasn't pursuing it professionally. I was going to go off to college, and I also wanted to enjoy my senior year of high school and not always be at the studio. So I decided that year I was going to do Nutcracker and then our June show and miss our spring one. So just so that I could have a little bit of a break. I'd still do classes and all that, but I'd have my weekends free because I wouldn't have rehearsals. But after Nutcracker, I was just stressed out during Nutcracker. I remember I was in Waltz of the Flowers that year. I was super excited to have that part. I remember coming off stage at one point and being so out of breath that I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to go back on. And then I did. I had to run on and immediately do a big jump. So does if you're a ballet dancer. But that is like my one memory from that Nutcracker, was that moment of just being like, oh my God, I can't do this. So I was starting to get stressed out, starting to not enjoy it anymore. And then after Nutcracker, for some reason, they released the cast list for our June show, which was Cinderella. And that was my favorite ballet. And through all the years, like I'd had some decent parts here and there. Like we did 12 Dancing Princesses, and I got to be one of the 12 princesses. And since I was one of the taller ones, like I got to do more dancing than some of the younger ones. But for the most part, I'd never had like, a super featured role or anything like that. So I had just really hoped that for my last show, as a senior in high school before I graduated, that I would get some kind of special part. Like, definitely not the lead role. I knew that there was no chance that was going to happen. And I probably would have been like beyond stressed out if it had. But just something. So for Cinderella, like maybe one of the fairies would have been nice. But then that cast list went up and I'd been cast as a party guest. And I think I was also cast as a seamstress, which my sister had done like 4 years before when we last did Cinderella, and she was in like one of the lowest levels at the time, and she had since quit because she did not enjoy ballet. So I was just devastated. And then one of my best friends, she got cast as Cinderella, so that was super exciting because usually like that was her first big role. Usually there were a couple dancers there who were really, really good, and they would get all the lead roles. But so it was amazing that my good friend got the lead part. But I was just so devastated about my casting because I was like, oh, like that's my last show, and I've waited all this time for that good part. And it never came. Yeah, so we saw that cast list before. Before the class that day, so I just remember going to that class, trying not to cry. Thankfully, I succeeded better than I am right now. But I also knew in that moment that I wasn't gonna stay. So, at that point, I'd had enough. I was like, okay, like, what am I working for? Because at least in every prior show, if I hadn't been cast in a role that I was happy with, I was like, okay, well, there's always the next one. I'll keep working. But like, that was it. So after all the stress of Nutcracker and just constantly feeling undervalued, I decided to leave. I went home and told my parents, and they were on board. They never forced me to do ballet. They probably would have been thrilled if I'd quit years earlier. My parents were probably like, why does she still want to do this? But I did. I loved being there, and I always had high standards for myself, and like this studio had high standards. And now I know I'm autistic. So the rigidity and the rules, like a lot of that I liked. It was definitely too much, but I like structure and I like rules and I like predictability. So a lot of it fit with my personality, but the controlling nature of the artistic director, Mirta, did not. So my parents and I were like, we knew how controlling she was. So even when I was leaving, I still wasn't able to just be like, okay, I'm gone, bye. But also I like to leave things on good terms whenever I can. So we very carefully crafted an email because I also had to get out of my contract. Remember, we had to sign these contracts that committed us to so many things. I mean, I think at that point, most of the financial commitment was done because you pay like a fee at the beginning of the school year for the company. And then all the other financial commitments are all like volunteer based, or we had like greenery that we sold as a fundraiser, like wreaths and garlands around Christmas time. So that would have been done by that point too. And then we also had to sell a certain amount of tickets for each show. So we very carefully crafted an email to Mirta asking to be released from my contract. And we said we'd still, buy tickets for the rest of the shows because we knew that could be an issue. So she responded and said, okay, yep, I'll release you from your contract. And yes, you do still need to fulfill your ticket requirements. And I don't know if there was anything else, but I do specifically remember that we had to meet that ticket requirement. So then I was free and I had to figure out what to do next. I still wanted to dance, and luckily there were a lot of other studios in the area. So I checked some of them out. One of the ones I went to with one of my high school friends that one was horrific. Oh my god. That teacher was worse than Mirta, honestly. It was terrifying. And I had a horrible class that day. And there were so many other dancers in there who were just amazing, like prodigies. So I took one class there and I was like, oh my gosh, have I made a terrible mistake? Should I go back? Like, what do I do? But thankfully I tried out another studio in the area and they were a lot better. They definitely valued me. I felt so valued there. They were a pretty decent studio. Definitely not as high of a technical caliber as we had at the previous one, but like not too bad. So I went there, and then they had a June performance as well, and I had switched in time before casting came out for that. And I don't think there was ever even like a list that came out. They just kind of told each class like, okay, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this. But in that one, I was given a soloist part. Everyone in my level, I think, yeah, we had like 4 or 5 of us. It's either my level or a specific class. But all of us got soloist parts there. So that was great. I finally got to achieve that dream. Like, that was what I wanted for my last show. And it was challenging, it was difficult, and looking back on the video, I'm not very happy with how I danced. Like, we did not have nearly as much rehearsal time as I had at my previous studio, so we were not very polished. But I got to have that last show that I wanted before I went off to college, and a part that I was happy with, that I felt like I'd spent my whole ballet life working toward. So let's fast forward to now. That studio I grew up at no longer exists as it was. Last summer, I believe it was last summer, Mirta retired. I believe she was kind of retiring like 10 or so years ago, but then couldn't give up the control, so she came back. That's just speculation, but that is, piecing together what I've heard and what I know about her, in my opinion. So she named her son as the new artistic director, but then they kind of became co-artistic directors, so she was still there, but he was also stepping in, and she was doing less than she did before, but I'm sure she still had complete control. Again, that's speculation, but... However, then it sounds like she completely stepped down either this last summer or pretty recently, within the last few months. But then I started to hear rumors that the studio was being sold and they were having financial difficulties. So after nearly 50 years, the studio was sold to a new owner whose main focus is a different style of dance than ballet. And I heard that ballet was supposed to stay in the curriculum, but with a more recent development, even that is now uncertain. So just very recently, within the past couple days when I'm filming this, there was a Facebook post on the studio's Facebook page that came out that said, Mirta, her sister, who also taught at the studio probably since it began, I used to take classes with her. She was great. She was very nice. Mirta's son, who's the new artistic director, and his wife are all moving out of state, like across the country. They stated that it was to go support family who lives out there. Don't know who that family is, but yeah, so they're all resigning and leaving. So now I have no idea if ballet is going to continue at all, but essentially all of the people who founded and shaped the studio are now gone, or very soon will be. And the overall decline in the studio can be seen in what's happened with their Nutcracker performances over the past few years. We started performing the Nutcracker in 2004. So I've been at the studio 4 years at that point. Before that, we did a different holiday production, which I really enjoyed, so I was very sad when that went away. But doing Nutcracker was a lot of fun. And we performed it, with the exception of the very first year. After that, and then every year until very recently, we performed in a 2,000 plus seat theater on a community college campus nearby. So very big theater, great facility. And also because of the high caliber of technical training at this studio, we'd always used our own dancers in all the principal roles. We'd never hired dancers from professional companies like some other dance studios do. But at least one of the past few years, they had hired former students who were now professional to come back and do those roles. So that told me okay, there's clearly a decline in either the number of students or the quality of the training or both, that they have to go out and hire former students to come in and do those roles, because that would have been unimaginable back when I was there. And then this past Nutcracker season, their Nutcracker was not performed in a theater at all. It was performed in the studio, and only friends and family were allowed to attend. So they didn't sell tickets or anything like that. It was just an in-studio performance. So I, of course, wondered why this happened, because that was so different from what I had experienced and what I had expected. So I went on their social media and found that someone had commented on a picture saying like, hey, how do I get tickets to the show? Like, when is it? And the studio had responded saying that they were not performing in a theater this year because the community college where they usually have it had decided only to host campus events. I was like, okay. Well, that's a little bit weird. So I was talking with a friend about it, and she told me that there are all kinds of like new theaters at the high schools in the area. So that was definitely an option. So I don't know why they chose not to pursue that as an option, or maybe they did. I don't know. But either way, didn't work out. So they ended up having it in the studio. But then I found a news article from November published by the community college about how this Nutcracker was, for the first time in nearly 20 years, not going to be at the theater. It did not mention anything about their theater only hosting campus events, but rather that the studio had experienced around a 50% drop in enrollment after internal changes, which from the article seems to be Mirta's retirement. So I'm not sure why that on social media they were saying it was the theater only doing campus events. I'm not sure what the full story is there. But either way, the whole thing to me screams financial problems, and then especially when you've got the studio being sold, and then everyone who had founded the studio is now like getting out of the state. So how did this happen? I mean, dance studios close all the time for financial reasons. Dance studios are not known for having a lot of money. I don't know if there are many dance studios out there who are like, yeah, we have tons of money, we're doing great. So that part is not entirely a shocker, but this one had been around for so long, was pretty well known, had very famous alumni, like I mentioned. So this proven track record of success. My theory is that the culture is what ultimately did them in. If it was the same level of control and negativity, fewer dancers are going to put up with that. And that's probably what happened. Every now and then I'll chat with people who I grew up at the studio with, and we'll hear various tidbits of information. So I had heard that the culture really hadn't changed at all. So this does not shock me then. I'd also been hearing rumors that finances were tough, especially after the pandemic, which makes sense. But then if you keep that same culture on top of that, you're probably not going to be able to build those numbers back up again. So after all that, after nearly 50 years, it's just all done. It makes me really sad because this studio truly could have been one of the best in the world. They had the technical training, they had a decent facility, they had so many wonderful instructors and musicians accompanying our class. They really had everything. While I'm sad, I'm also not entirely shocked. You can't keep operating that same way and have it last forever. It's just not going to work. In this day and age where people know that they have other options, people aren't going to put up with that. I hope that the dancers who remain under the new ownership find a healthier, kinder environment. This has affected me quite a bit, and it just breaks my heart that a piece of my childhood is just gone now. I mean, I still have all the friendships and connections that I made there. But just knowing that that place doesn't really exist anymore, it's pretty heartbreaking, because I know how much I loved it. And I knew how great it could be, but really it was one person who ruined it all. And she broke so many of us along the way. But, despite how I look right now, I'm doing well. I'm in a much better place. I love my current studio. And now I'm able to do ballet on my terms. And it's so much better, and I'm a better dancer because of it too. The studio I dance at now is a complete 180 in culture from the studio I grew up at. The culture is just great. They are so nurturing. They want everyone to love dance. There's no strictness. In fact, honestly, I would like a little bit more strictness, but that's just me and liking structure and rigidity. But it's good that they don't. I can put that own structure on myself. especially as an adult now. Like, I can control my schedule, how often I do class, I know what I need to do, I know how to be disciplined. In my current studio, it definitely doesn't have the level of technical prowess and, famous alumni like my old one did, but I'm so much happier.